It all started when I asked for personal space. My alien maid, a Zogulian, took it a little too literally, and from there, well, things escalated quickly. I had just landed on Zorath 9, a planet known for its elite alien families and galactic politics. As a seasoned human diplomat, I was tasked with negotiating peace between two factions who'd been at each other's throats for decades. It was supposed to be a simple dinner, a friendly exchange, an easy win. I had done these kinds of things 100 times before. But I wasn't expecting her. She was standing by the door, her small antennae twitching, adjusting her apron. A Zogulian maid. One of the most literal-minded species in the galaxy. Known for taking things exactly as they're said, and unable to read between the lines. It was going to be a long night. "Sir, your meal is prepared," she said, her voice sweet but completely devoid of sarcasm or irony. Just straightforward. I smiled politely, thinking this was going to be like any other diplomatic dinner I'd been a part of. Then I made my first mistake. Can you give me a little personal space?" I asked, feeling the weight of the evening's tensions creeping in. "Just for a bit, to get settled?" She blinked twice, a high-pitched chirp escaping her mouth as she processed the request. "Personal space," she repeated, turning her head to one side. "Understood, sir." And then, before I could blink, she moved, right behind me. I felt her soft hands on my shoulders, a gentle pressure that felt too intimate for a professional setting. I froze, unsure how to react. Was this a cultural thing? Maybe Zogulians express service differently? But no, this was crossing boundaries. No," I managed to stammer. "Not like that." Her antennae twitched again, and she immediately took a step back. "My apologies, sir. I misunderstood your request for personal space. I'll give you the space you need." I sighed, relieved, until she came around in front of me, squatting down in a strange, oddly intimate position. "I'm here to serve you, sir. Your feet, your hands, any part of your body that requires care. I can give you space by positioning myself away from you. I'm not sure which of your limbs requires my attention first." My eyes went wide as she made a move toward my legs. "No," I said, holding up my hands to stop her. "That's not what I meant at all. Sir, I'm only trying to give you what you've asked for," she said, tilting her head innocently. "You wanted personal space. I'm here to assist." I glanced around the room, and the alien guests were watching this whole thing unfold. Some had raised eyebrows, others stifled chuckles. This wasn't going well. "Right, okay. Thank you, but I just need a moment to adjust," I said quickly. I needed to make this clear, get the dinner back on track. I wasn't about to let this dinner turn into a complete disaster over a misunderstanding about personal space. But it was too late. She wasn't just standing there. No, she moved to the side and gestured to the chair beside me. "I've prepared the meal, sir. But I sense discomfort. Should I sit with you to help you feel more at ease?" My heart sank. Was this normal? Had I accidentally entered some kind of galactic dating ritual? Was this how Zogulian maid service worked? I had no idea, but I didn't have time to figure it out. I could see the guests watching with more than just curiosity now. The matriarch of the alien family, a towering, regal creature with multiple limbs and an array of glowing patterns on her skin, seemed entertained. Her gaze was sharp and calculating, but there was a mischievous smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. I realized that in my desperate attempt to seem composed, I was losing control of the situation entirely. "Actually," I said, trying to salvage my dignity, "maybe I should start with dinner. I'm sure you've got things to attend to, right?" The maid nodded, but before she stepped away, she added, "I can't help but notice your discomfort, sir. If you'd like, I can rub your shoulders, perhaps your back, to alleviate the tension?" I stared at her. I was speechless. Was this a normal thing on Zorath 9? Did everyone get massaged by their maid? Or was she simply reading my body language wrong? No," I said, shaking my head frantically. "I'm fine. Really." She didn't move. Instead, she stood there, waiting patiently, clearly not understanding why her perfectly reasonable offer was being rejected. Her soft, alien eyes never left me. I could feel the tension mounting. Every second of this dinner felt like an eternity. I glanced at the other guests. The alien matriarch was practically grinning, clearly entertained by my predicament. The rest of the guests were either trying to hold back laughter or pretending to be entirely focused on their food. I could tell I was losing the diplomatic battle before it even started. "All right," I muttered under my breath. "Let's just get this over with." The maid's response was immediate. "Very well, sir. I'll just stand by and watch, and should you need my assistance, I'll be here." I began to eat, trying to act as though nothing was out of the ordinary. Meanwhile, the maid continued to hover nearby, watching me with an intensity that only made things worse. Her eyes never left my every move. I felt a bead of sweat forming on the back of my neck. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Look, can we just—" I began, but she interrupted, her voice full of concern. "Is the food not to your liking, sir?" she asked, her tone serious. "I can prepare something else for you. I can even add a little spice to the dish, if you prefer." I rubbed my temples. This was supposed to be a diplomatic dinner, not a disaster zone. I didn't even know how to explain this. It wasn't just the maid, it was the whole damn culture. Zogulians didn't have personal boundaries. Their idea of personal space seemed to be sharing everything, all the time. "Actually," I said, giving up on the whole personal space thing, "I think I'm just going to finish my meal in peace. Could you, stand over there?" I pointed vaguely to the corner of the room. She blinked, not understanding the request. "I don't need to stand. I am here to assist you." I sighed deeply, realizing that my personal space was a lost cause. If I wanted to survive this dinner without completely losing my mind, I'd have to go with the flow. Literally. The Zogulian maid moved closer, just slightly. Not enough to make it too obvious, but close enough that I could feel her presence, making my discomfort even worse. I was trapped in a game of misunderstanding, surrounded by aliens who thought my awkwardness was some form of cosmic humor. There was no escaping this, not now. I gave up. The evening had already spiraled out of control, and it was only just beginning. I could feel the sweat pooling at the back of my neck. This wasn't just a diplomatic dinner, it was rapidly turning into a comedy of errors. The Zogulian maid, still standing too close for comfort, had become a permanent fixture in my peripheral vision, her bright, unnervingly curious eyes following every move I made. I forced myself to focus on the meal, trying to ignore the strange tension building up in my spine. "Is everything satisfactory, sir?" she asked again, her voice almost too sweet, but with an underlying urgency as if she couldn't bear the thought of not fulfilling her duties. "I can add more spice if you'd like." I looked at the plate. It was some weird green gelatinous thing that I couldn't identify. I had no idea what it was supposed to taste like, but it was, unfortunately, too late to ask questions. I'd already made the mistake of letting her think I needed assistance earlier, and now it was just me trying to survive the night without embarrassing myself further. No spice, thanks," I replied, my voice strained as I picked up my fork and stabbed at the gelatinous mass. My hand trembled slightly, but I tried to look casual as I brought the food to my mouth. The moment I chewed, I almost gagged. It tasted like wet rubber soaked in some kind of alien vinegar. I fought to keep my face neutral, but my body betrayed me with a barely contained gag. "Is something wrong with the food, sir?" the maid asked, leaning in a little too close. Before I could answer, the matriarch, who had been silent up until this point, chimed in. "Oh, don't worry, human," she said with a hint of amusement in her voice. "Zogulian cuisine is an acquired taste." I forced a smile, nodding, but all I wanted to do was swallow the entire thing without tasting it. The maid continued to hover over me, her presence suffocating as she stood by like some kind of overzealous bodyguard. "Shall I cut it for you, sir? I can assist." I shook my head quickly, desperate to avoid any more assistance. "I've got it, really." The maid's antennae twitched, and she gave a confused little chirp. Very well, sir. It was then that I noticed something strange. Her eyes were locked onto me, her gaze far too focused. I tried not to notice, but it was impossible to ignore. Was this some kind of service? Did Zogulians just stand there, watching? My discomfort was starting to boil over. There was no personal space, no understanding of boundaries. I had no idea how to escape this awkwardness. The worst part? I couldn't get a read on the other guests. They were all pretending like nothing weird was happening. Can we talk about the negotiation? I blurted, desperate for a change of subject, anything to steer the conversation away from my awkwardness. Oh, yes, the matriarch said, finally focusing on the task at hand. We would love to hear your thoughts on the proposal we sent you last month. I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could, the maid was back in my line of sight, looking intently at my glass of water. Shall I refill your drink, sir? She asked, her tone still too innocent. She was being so literal about everything. Every single thing I said seemed to require her to perform some action, no matter how unrelated. No, I said, raising my hand to stop her. I'm good for now. I needed to get through this dinner. And out of this godforsaken place before I lost my mind. But then the maid, who clearly hadn't caught the social cues, bent down and reached under the table, much too close to me, far too close, and began shifting my chair. I think you need a more comfortable seat, sir. I'm helping you adjust to ensure optimal comfort, she said. This was it. My breaking point. No more adjustments, please, I said, standing up too quickly. My chair tipped slightly as I straightened myself, and in that moment, the whole damn table wobbled. The glass of water nearly tipped over, and my plate of food was on the verge of sliding off the table. I frantically steadied everything, only to look up and find the maid staring at me, her head tilted in confusion. Did you not want me to help you? She asked, clearly perplexed. I'm here to assist. I slapped a hand over my face, utterly mortified. This was the worst possible situation I could have imagined. And to make matters worse, the alien matriarch was absolutely loving it. I caught her trying to suppress a grin, and I knew I was the joke. Well, I said, trying to recover my dignity. Perhaps we should discuss the matter at hand instead of seating adjustments. I glanced around the room at the others, but it was clear that everyone was just waiting for me to implode. The maid, ever the dutiful servant, backed away slightly, but only to position herself by the door. She waited, as though hoping for some kind of next command. As if I had already given her a list of instructions. Right, I said, shifting uncomfortably in my seat. The proposal. The peace deal. We need to. But the moment I started talking about business, she was back, right beside me again, this time far too close for comfort. She leaned in with an odd smile, her antennae flicking. Is the proposal important, sir? Can I assist in making it better for you? I can offer my services for any last-minute adjustments to your thoughts or strategies. I couldn't stop myself. My hands shot up to my face, a mix of frustration and disbelief taking over. I don't need any more help. I just need. I stopped myself, realizing that the more I tried to get out of this, the worse it seemed to get. The matriarch's laughter rang out across the room, and I could see the others trying to stifle their chuckles as they watched me slowly lose my composure. My reputation, my career, everything was on the line. And here I was, floundering like a fish out of water. I took a deep breath and tried to regain some semblance of control. Let's focus, I said, trying to sound calm. On the peace treaty. The future of our civilizations depends on it. But the maid wasn't done. Should I pour your wine, sir? You seem a little tense. I glanced at the glass, at my reflection, and then at the matriarch's smirk. I realized that nothing I could do would make this dinner end any sooner. All I could do was keep going. The words of the peace treaty escaped me. Everything was slipping away in a blur of alien misunderstandings and awkward personal space issues. I'm fine, I said, trying to regain composure, but it was clear that nothing could fix what had already been broken. At this point, I just had to get through it. I wasn't sure how much longer I could stand the weight of my own embarrassment. And then, she offered me another bizarre suggestion. "Perhaps, sir," the maid began, "you would like me to rub your shoulders? You seem very tense. It is a Zogilian technique for calming stress." I didn't have the energy to refuse anymore. "I don't need a shoulder rub," I snapped, almost too harshly. "Just please stand back." The Zogilian maid stood there for a long moment, processing the words. And then, in a voice that seemed even too polite, she said, "Understood. I'll await your next instruction, sir." By now, I had lost track of how many times I had tried to steer this dinner back to something remotely professional. Every time I thought I was about to regain some control, the Zogilian maid would appear at my side like some kind of well-meaning but relentless shadow. The worst part was, I was so flustered, I had completely forgotten what I was supposed to be talking about. I turned back to the guests, trying to regain my composure, but their eyes were all on me, waiting for my next move. The alien matriarch was practically glowing with amusement, clearly enjoying my discomfort. She hadn't said much so far, but her smirk was telling me everything I needed to know. She was savoring every second of my struggle. So... I cleared my throat, trying to focus. "The treaty." "Right. The treaty. Indeed, human," the matriarch said, finally speaking up. "We are most curious about your species' approach to diplomacy. What is it that you bring to the table?" I tried to block out the mental image of the maid, still standing by the door, waiting for me to crack. I had no choice but to continue the discussion. After all, this was the whole point of the evening. If I could survive the dinner, I'd come out with a solid diplomatic win. If not, well, I didn't want to think about that. "Well, we, humans, we're known for our flexibility," I said, trying to sound confident. "Our ability to negotiate, adapt, and, compromise." As soon as the words left my mouth, I saw the maid's antennae twitch again. She stepped forward, looking far too interested in what I was saying. "Compromise, sir?" she asked, her voice eager. "I can help you with compromise, sir. Would you like me to adjust the lighting? Maybe make the atmosphere more conducive to negotiating?" I blinked, unsure if she had just suggested that she could literally adjust my negotiation strategy. "No," I said, trying to remain calm. "I think the lighting is fine, thank you. Let's focus on the—" But she wasn't listening. She was already halfway across the room, pulling at the holographic light controls embedded in the walls. As the lights flickered and shifted, the entire room bathed in a soft pink hue. The effect was disorienting, and I swear I saw the matriarch's smirk widen. I was losing it. Losing it badly. "Sir, I have adjusted the lighting for optimal negotiation mood," the maid said proudly, standing in front of me now, blocking my view of the guests. "I've also increased the humidity. It's a Zogilian tradition to make the air more comfortable during discussions." I could barely form a coherent thought. The air is fine," I said, now frantically trying to gather myself. "But," she continued, "I also noticed that your shoulders seem tense. Should I provide a bit of massage while we negotiate? That always helps my species." I froze, my mind finally catching up with the absurdity of what she was saying. This was it. The last straw. I was about to lose my mind. "No more massages," I said, forcing the words out through clenched teeth. "No more adjustments. Please just—" I was about to finish the sentence when the maid leaned in, whispering directly into my ear. "Sir, I can help you relax better than anyone else," she said, in a low, almost conspiratorial voice. I was about to lose it. "Would you like me to make you comfortable in the way Zogilians do? You'll feel much more at ease." I looked at her, absolutely horrified. Was she trying to seduce me? Or was this just her idea of comfort? Either way, I had no idea how to respond. The entire room felt like it was closing in on me. The guests were watching me with a mix of amusement and curiosity, the matriarch enjoying every single awkward second. I think I'll pass on the Zogulian way of comfort, I managed to say, forcing a strained smile. Let's just stick to the treaty. But it was too late. The maid had already decided. Without another word, she moved behind me. The others were now laughing openly, trying to stifle their amusement but failing miserably. The matriarch's laughter was rich and booming, filling the entire room. I felt an odd warmth on my back, and for a moment, I thought she had started some kind of ritualistic comfort procedure. But no, it wasn't that. It was worse. She was simply rubbing my shoulders again. Please, I said, nearly in tears at this point. No more massages. I don't need your help. This is fine. Everything is fine. The maid didn't stop. She just kept rubbing. Her hands, soft but forceful, worked in small, deliberate circles, and I could feel every ounce of my willpower being drained. Why are you doing this? I half screamed, half whimpered. The room fell silent for a second as everyone waited for me to snap. The maid, not understanding the situation, just smiled as though she was helping me out of a genuine need. Is this not the right thing, sir? No. It's not! I shouted, leaping out of my chair in a panic. This time, my chair tipped over and fell to the floor with a loud crash. Everyone gasped. The alien guests were now fully laughing, their faces red with the effort of holding back the uproar. Even the matriarch, who had been the picture of politeness up until this point, let out a full-on belly laugh. Human, you seem to be experiencing some discomfort, she said between laughs, clearly enjoying my humiliation. Perhaps we should try something else? Or maybe you've simply had too much Zogulian hospitality. I forced myself to stand tall, knowing that my diplomatic career was teetering on the edge of a cliff. No, no more. I'm fine. Thank you, I said through gritted teeth. My heart was pounding in my chest. The more I tried to salvage this situation, the worse it got. Are you sure, sir? The maid asked, still hovering around me, looking concerned. I've read that humans find massages especially helpful when they're overwhelmed. I glanced at the guests, and their laughter echoed through the room. Every single one of them was watching me, waiting for me to break. The matriarch was barely holding back tears of laughter. At this point, I was no longer sure what was worse, the awkwardness of the situation or the realization that I was being utterly defeated by a Zogulian maid and a room full of aliens who were taking way too much pleasure in my suffering. Well, I said, standing a little straighter. Let's just move on, shall we? My voice was shaky, but I was trying to regain some control. I wasn't going to let this dinner be the end of me. But as I turned to face the matriarch, the maid placed her hand on my back one more time. Are you sure, sir? She asked sweetly. Would you like me to calm your nerves before the next part of the treaty discussion? It's perfectly normal for humans to need help with stress relief. I felt the last shred of my sanity slip away. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and braced for whatever humiliation was about to come next. I was ready to just end the evening and crawl into some remote corner of the universe where this level of social disaster didn't exist. But as I looked around the room, I saw the expressions on the faces of my alien guests. They weren't just amused, they were delighted. This wasn't a diplomatic dinner anymore. This was a performance, and I was the punchline. Every single one of them was looking at me like I was some kind of living comedy show. I had no idea what to do next. I tried to force a smile, but it came out more like a grimace. So, about the treaty. My voice cracked halfway through, and I could feel the beads of sweat starting to form at the back of my neck again. I wasn't even sure if I still knew what we were negotiating. We can look at the terms again, right? I mean, this is still on the table? I asked, flailing to bring the conversation back to something serious. But the maid wasn't done with me. She was standing there, arms folded, eyes fixed on me with the intensity of someone preparing for the final act of a performance. I believe you are feeling the stress, sir, she said, stepping forward again. Perhaps you need another round of assistance? My eyes widened in sheer horror. No. No more assistance. I'm fine. I could already feel the heat of the room suffocating me. I had never felt so overwhelmed in my life. My brain was short-circuiting, trying to process all the absurdity unfolding around me. I had come to this dinner to negotiate a treaty, not to be stuck in some bizarre Zogilian sitcom. But she just smiled. "Are you sure, sir? I have read that sometimes humans need more time to adjust to their environment. Let me know if you need me to make you more comfortable." The words were too much. I couldn't take it anymore. I snapped. "I don't need anything," I shouted, causing the entire room to fall silent. The laughter had stopped, and now all eyes were on me with a mixture of shock and amusement. I had just screamed at a Zogulian maid in front of a room full of alien dignitaries, and somehow, this felt like the least embarrassing thing that had happened all night. The silence lingered. For a brief moment, no one spoke. The maid stood there, frozen, her face a perfect picture of confusion, as if she genuinely couldn't comprehend why I was so upset. It was almost like a slapstick moment straight out of a bad comedy, except I was living it. I was the fool, and everyone else was getting a free show. "Well," the matriarch said, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were dancing with amusement. "It seems the human has reached his limit. Perhaps we should take a break from the treaty discussion and give him some space." "I would appreciate that," I said, my voice tight, my hands clenched at my sides. I wasn't sure what was worse, the fact that I was being laughed at or the fact that I might not be able to salvage this dinner at all. I needed a way out. I needed to get out of this room before I did something I'd regret. But the maid, clearly still oblivious to the social cues, continued her relentless pursuit of comfort. "Sir, I have noticed that you are experiencing physical tension. Would you like me to apply more pressure to your shoulders? I've been trained in advanced Zogilian techniques for stress relief." I didn't even know what to say anymore. I was so done. "No! No more massages!" I shouted again, but my voice came out much more desperate this time. The words felt like they were tearing through me. The Zogulian maid looked at me with an odd, sympathetic tilt of her head. "I understand, sir. I'll step back and await your instructions." She took a couple of steps backward, but I could still feel her eyes on me. I swear, she was waiting for me to say something else, waiting for me to give her permission to continue with whatever bizarre help she thought I needed. "Please," I whispered to myself, trying to calm down. I needed to take control. I had to finish this dinner. I had to survive this humiliation. But then came the real kicker. The matriarch leaned forward, her voice smooth as silk. "I must admit, human, you have shown great endurance tonight." She looked directly at me, her eyes gleaming. Not many species could handle so much attention with such grace. I wanted to retort, to say something sharp, but I was too drained. My thoughts were spinning. I could feel the room closing in on me again. How had this dinner become so absurd? How had everything gone so far off track? "Perhaps," the matriarch continued, "we should change our approach to this negotiation. It seems your preferences may not align with the traditional Zogulian method of diplomacy. Would you like to explain what you find more comfortable, human?" My stomach twisted. I had no idea how to answer that. I didn't even know how to explain what was happening. I wasn't sure if I was being ridiculed or if they genuinely wanted to hear my thoughts. But at this point, the damage was done. The Zogulian maid had already set the tone, and now I was left standing at the center of this diplomatic disaster, a mere pawn in their game. I gave a shallow breath, gathering what little dignity I had left. I began, but I stopped myself. I wasn't sure what I was about to say. What could I possibly say? I was getting nowhere with this. The matriarch raised an eyebrow, clearly amused by my hesitation. "Are you uncomfortable, human? Should we give you more space?" I looked up, meeting her eyes. "Yes," I said finally, my voice a whisper. "Please. Just space. Just give me some space." The words felt weak, but at this point, it was all I had. I wanted to get out of this dinner, to regain some semblance of control, but I knew that the rest of the evening would be spent trying to smooth over whatever scraps of dignity I had left. The maid took another step back, and this time, it seemed like she truly understood. As you wish, sir. I will respect your need for personal space. The room, however, still buzzed with quiet laughter and whispers. I knew the night wasn't over. I would have to finish what I started, but it was clear now that no matter how much I tried to salvage it, the damage had been done. The Zogulian maid had outwitted me at every turn, and the matriarch and her guests would never let me forget it. At least, I thought to myself bitterly, I had made it this far without completely humiliating myself. Well, maybe not entirely.